Hello everyone. In today's class, we'll be looking into HTML forms. HTML forms are used to collect the user input. So the forms can be the registration forms. It can be like login forms. Okay, so these are examples of forms wherein in the forms we'll be collecting some user information such as the name of the user. So the name of the user, again we'll be collecting the first name of the user, then the last name of the user, and the initial of the user, and so on. And also we can collect the email ID of the user. Then we'll be collecting the hobbies of the user. It depends on what kind of form we are creating. Okay, hobbies of the user, and then the gender of the user, and so on. Okay, and educational qualification of the user, and so on, we'll be collecting. And finally, after the user fills in the form, we'll be using an element which is called as the button element, which is like submit button. Okay, so we'll be using the submit button through which the user's content will be taken. So forms are used for this, and we'll be doing this by using the form element. So this is a form element. So inside this form tag, you'll be having many attributes which we'll be seeing in a while. And so you can, so to give the definition of a form is like a container. So form is like a container to take, so which will be taking to take different, so it will be taking different input elements into it. Okay, so which will be taking different input elements into it. So that is called as a form. Form is a container, so which will be taking different input elements into it. And the input elements are, so what are the input elements? So the input elements are like they can be the text element, it can be the password element, the text element, it can be the password element, it can be the radio buttons that you can take, and it can be the check boxes that we can take, and it can also include the submit button and the reset button, and so on. Okay, so these are some of the input elements that the form will be having. So the input elements will be taken by using the input tag. So this is an input tag. So from through the input tag, the input elements will be taken. So the syntax of taking the input tag will be like input, and then you will be having the type attribute. So within this type attribute, you will be giving the type of the input element that you require. Say for example, I want the input element text field, then inside this type field, I'll be giving the text. Okay, so this is how I'll be giving the input element. So let us look into what do the form um, tag have. So the form tag will be something like this. So there will be an on and off tag for the form. So this is the on tag and the off tag. In between this on and off tag, you will be giving the input elements. It can be a text field, or it can be a password field, or submit button, or so on. We'll be giving in between this particular tags. Okay, so the open tag of form and the close tag of the form. And this form will be generally inside the body tag of the HTML. So this will be inside the body tag. So in between, inside the body tag, you will be writing the form tag, and inside the form tag, you will be giving the input tag, wherein you will be mentioning whatever input element that you require. You will be giving it in this manner. Okay, so this is the syntax or the structure of how you will be giving the form tag. So inside the form tag, so now we'll just try to understand what are the attributes that will be there inside the form tag. So inside the form tag, I can have the name of the form. So the name of the form, generally a name is an attribute over here. So name is an attribute which can be there inside the form tag as well. So name is equal to, so name attribute generally takes the text into it. And what is the name attribute? So the name attribute will give the name to a form. So you'll be giving a name to the form, and it will generally take a text. So I'm saying the name of the form is form 1. So this is the name of the tag, and generally the server receives this name. Okay, so and then processes it based on the name of the form, and then you can also give the ID. So ID is equal to, so then I'm saying ID is equal to F1. So what is ID? ID is another attribute that you can use along with the form, which actually gives an unique ID for an HTML element. You can use ID along with other elements as well, and we are using ID along with the form also. It is possible to use ID tag. So what is ID attribute? ID attribute it gives an unique ID to a HTML element. So form is an HTML element and you're giving an unique ID to it. Now, what is the purpose of giving an ID to the particular HTML element is that to identify the element while linking or scripting or styling. Okay, so whenever you want to style this particular form, you will be by using CSS, cascading style sheet, you will be referring this form by using the ID. Okay, so even it is this ID is used for scripting. Whenever you want to link something, you will be using this ID only. Okay, so this form is identified with an unique ID, which is the ID. And name is again a unique name that we are giving to the form, but this name is taken by the server. Okay, server will be receiving the name, and ID you will be using to actually give it some styling to the entire form, or scripting and for linking. So that's the difference between the ID and the name attribute. Inside the form tag, you also have another attribute which is called as the action attribute. So what is an action attribute? Action attribute specifies where to send the form data when form is submitted. So what is action attribute? Okay. Action attribute. Okay, so action attribute specifies where to send the form data, where to send the form data when form is submitted. Okay, so this is what is called as action. So say for example, so here the action could be like I want to send it to a file, which is action .php. So this can be the action. Okay, so action attribute specifies where to send the form data when form is submitted. So when the form is submitted, we want the form to be submitted to this particular PHP file. Okay, so which is a server side script which will handle the form. Okay, right. So this is regarding the action attribute. Another attribute is the method attribute. So method attribute can take in two values. So the next one is the method attribute. The method attribute can take two values. The first one is the post and the second one is the get method, get value. Okay, so what is the method attribute? Method attribute is the HTTP method. What is HTTP method? HTTP method is hypertext transfer protocol. So which is the application layer protocol, which is used to send the data from the client to the server. So what is this particular HTTP is used? It is used to send the data to the server, and it's an application layer protocol. Method attribute of HTML specifies the HTTP method to use when sending the form data. This kind of file transfer is possible by values which are post and get. So what method you want? You want post method or you want the get method? Now post method is used to send the data more securely, and get method is used to send the data with there won't be any kind of security. Okay, so for sensitive data, we'll be using the post method, and for sending insensitive data, we'll be using the get method. What is meant by sensitive data? Sensitive data is like the password of the user and user information which you do not want it to be appended in the URL, and everybody will know the information. So when you don't want the information to be known to everybody, then you will be using the post method. So post method is a bit like secure kind of transfer, and get method will actually append it to the URL and everybody can see the information. So you can use either get value or you can use the post value depending on type of the data that is being transferred. Okay, so this is regarding the method second attribute in the form tag, which is the method attribute. And you can also use the target attribute. So I made a detailed video on the target value, target attribute and its values, which are underscore self and underscore blank and underscore parent and underscore top, and also putting it in another frame. So I'll be giving the link in the description box. You can watch the target attribute yeah, in that video and come back. Okay, right. So you can also use the target attribute inside the form. And inside this form, so you can have the input elements. So as I already said, like the input elements can be giving a label, or it can be a text or a password field, or it can be a radio button, or it can be a submit button, or it can be a checkbox and so on. So I'll show all this in practicals now. So let me go to the notepad. Okay, so let me start giving the skeleton of the HTML document. So I said HTML, and inside the body of the HTML, so you can also give the head and the title and so on. So let me also do that. Inside the head tag, okay, so I'm giving the head tag over here. So inside the head tag, I'm giving the title. So this is the title. Okay, so what is the title? So we'll be creating a login. So I'm just saying it's a, or I'll say forms demo. Okay, so I'm saying forms demo, and then I'm closing the title tag. So we know like where this title tag appears. I'll show you practically. Okay, so inside the body tag, so there is an off tag for the body. So this is the body tag, and then this is the off tag for the HTML. Okay, now inside the body tag, so I'm giving the form over here. So I'm giving an ID to the form. So I'm saying ID is equal to F1, and if you want, you can give the name to the form. So name of the form is equal to, I'm saying it's again F1. So you can keep the names to be same, or you can also change the names as possible. Okay, so for the off, there is again off tag for the form. So I'm just giving an off to the form. Okay, right. So inside the form, let me just show you how to take the input element. So the first input element that I'm going to show you is the text field. Okay, so the tag that I'll be using is the input tag. So I'm saying input, and then inside the type attribute, I need to give the text. Okay, so I want a text field, so I just have mentioned text field. Okay, so let me show you what will be the effect of this, and then I'll try to add more features into it. So I'm saving this. So to save this, I'm saving it on the desktop. So I'm giving it as login.html. So I saved it. So let me actually run this. Okay, so this is our login. So this is how actually it appeared. Okay, so I got the text field, but there is nothing written in it. But as you click on it, you can enter something into it. Okay, so I can enter web technologies and all that. I can actually type in some text into this particular text field. Okay, so but we can add lot of attributes and values into it. Let me actually do that. Let me actually do it simultaneously and show you. So here what I'm doing is, so the user, if there is a text field like this, the user will not be able to understand what to do. Okay, so for that, actually, I can use a attribute which is called as placeholder. So the attribute which is called as placeholder will give a short hint which describes what is expected value for the input field. Okay, so we are using an attribute which is called as placeholder. Inside the placeholder, I'll be saying like, please enter your name. Okay, so I'm saying please enter your name. Okay, so I have given this. Let me save this and refresh this and show you. Okay, so this is what will happen when I give a placeholder. So whatever I have given inside this placeholder appeared here in the text field, like please enter your name. So this will give a hint to the user like what to do. Okay, and this is still incomplete. Like rather than giving the placeholders, you can also give a label in front of it, which is a passive element. So I can give a label in front of it. How I can give a label in front of it is I can use the label tag. So I'm saying I'm using the label tag. So I'm saying label, and then I am giving the label over here, which is like saying username, and then I am closing the label tag. Okay, so I just opened the label tag and then typed in what I want to appear. So I want the label username to appear here and then label one. So let me save this and then refresh here. So you can see that the username appeared here and then it is saying please enter your name. So if you want a connection between the label and the text field, if you want both the things to have a connection, so you have an attribute which is called as the for attribute inside the label. So the for attribute here, say for example, is L1. So inside the input tag, here you need to give it as a connection. So I'm saying ID is equal to so the same name I have to give. Okay, so I have given L1 here for right. So this label is for this particular ID. So this particular text field. So I'm establishing a connection between the text field and the label over here. So the ID of the text field is L1. So I'm saying this label is for this particular text field, which is L1. Okay, so this is how I established a connection between the text field and the label. So I'll be adding more features into the text field. So I'll be taking off this placeholder. So let me take off this placeholder and add some other attributes into it. Let me get to the end of this. Okay, right. So I'm using another attribute which is called as value attribute. So inside the value attribute, I am actually giving the initial value that need to be there in the text box. Okay, so the initial value that need to be there in the text box. I want Sudha to be there initially in the text box. So you can see Sudha appeared here in the text box. So I want Sudha to be there as the initial value. So I'll be giving that as value attribute over here. Okay. So this is regarding the value attribute. And let me show you another thing. For example, if I want to disable a text field, so I'll be using a word which is called as disabled. Okay, so I'm simply saying disabled. I just have given disabled at the end, and let us see what will happen. Okay, so when I refresh this, you can see that the text box is completely disabled. You cannot do anything, but you can actually copy this text. So I have actually copied this text, and I'll show you, like you can actually paste it somewhere. So copying the text and pasting is possible, but you cannot enter anything inside this particular text box. Why it is not possible? It is not possible because I have given it as I have disabled the text field. So you can actually disable the text field. And what else you can do? You can also give read only. Okay, so when you give read only, the text in the whatever data that is there inside the text field is only used for reading. Okay, so you can not write anything inside it, but you can copy paste and all that you can do. So that is the read only thing, read only field that you can give over here. Okay, and the next one is the size attribute. The default size of the text field, the visible width. Okay, so what is the size attribute? Size attribute is the visible width of the text box. Okay, so what is the visible size of the text box by default is 20 characters. Okay, so if you want the size to be more, so say for example, I'm giving 100 over here. So you can see the size of the text box or the text field will be 100 characters. So you can actually increase it. By default, it is 20 characters. You can actually increase the or set the size of the visible width of the text box. So this is regarding the size field. So you also have another attribute which is called as max length. So max length is the permissible number of characters allowed. Okay, so the maximum number of characters allowed inside the text box. Okay, so here I'm saying the maximum length is 3. Okay, so I am giving it. So say for example, I'm giving it as 8. So I have given it as 8. So inside the text box, so I have given 8, right? So when I'm trying to give more characters here, 9 and all that, it is not working. Okay, so it is taking only 8 characters over here inside the text field. So that is regarding the max length. Okay, fine. So this is regarding the text field. Thank you for watching.